possible showers. It rained immediately after last night's game. It'll be another crowd of around 50,000 to see John Denny go against Fernando Valenzuela. Hi, everybody. I'm Vin Scully, along with Joe Garagiola. And, Joe, in the aftermath of last night's game, is there anything you got from that you can apply to tonight's game?
Well, I think as a fan, and we've heard it for 100 years, the one thing you can apply, Vin, is that we've heard never let the big man beat you. And Carlton did such a good job of pitching around Guerrero. I'm wondering, will Valenzuela start to pitch around Schmidt? And will Denny try to go around Guerrero? I'll be looking for that. And then, of course, there's a lineup change, which I think is a big factor.
Well, it's a big difference, too. You can pitch around Guerrero and get the rookie Marshall. If you pitch around Schmidt, you get Matthews, Maddox et al. So it's a totally different ballgame.
It is, and it'll depend on the temperament. Tommy Lasorda will have to get his Dodgers to score runs. He'll have to do it by getting something started. I'm looking for some hit and running. I'm looking for some stealing. But Brock is batting second. There are many things you can read into that. First of all, if Sachs gets on, it means he's got a hole between first and second. And also, if Sachs is on, maybe Brock will get more fastballs to hit, and he might pop one out and get it going. So I think Tommy had to think long and hard about that one.
He sure did, because Rick Monday, who might have started, is 3 for 3 with 2 RBIs against John Denny, while Greg Brock is 1 for 7, that one being a double and 1 RBI. So when we asked Lasorda, what about it, he said, well, I just have a hunch.
Well, and his pinch hitters, if Monday's going to be the pinch hitter, then you got Holland going against him. Will Monday bat? A lot of things.
We'll find out about that. In fact, we'll be back with Len Berman and with Tom Seaver, all coming up right after this.
Back in Los Angeles, partly cloudy skies at the moment. Unlike in Baltimore this afternoon during Game 1 of the American League Championship Series, the skies really opened up. There was a rain delay, but when they completed action, the White Sox beat the Orioles 2-1. Don Criqui with the highlights now.
Thanks, Len. Game 1 of the American League Championship Series began at Baltimore with the threat of rain. Baltimore starter Scott McGregor ran into problems with 2 out in the 3rd inning. Rudy Law of the White Sox, who went 2 for 36 against Baltimore pitching this season, started a rally with this base hit. Carlton Fisk followed with another single, and then Tom Paciorek drove in Law with the first run of the game with this 2-out smash that was too hot to handle for Baltimore third baseman Todd Cruz. It was scored a hit. Chicago won, Orioles nothing. In the 4th, the threatened rains came as American League President Lee McPhail looked down. The delay was 42 minutes. Later, when play resumed, Baltimore catcher Rick Dempsey broke up a double play the hard way. But Dempsey came back. Rick Dempsey stopped Vernon Law from scoring the game's 2nd run when he fielded a wild pitch at the backstop and threw to Scott McGregor, who made the tag at home plate. Chicago starter Lamar Hoyt continued to baffle the Orioles. John Lowenstein was caught looking at a strike to end the 7th inning. Baltimore's book on Lamar Hoyt doesn't overpower you, doesn't give you anything to hit. With 2 out in the 9th, Cal Ripken Jr. drove in pinch runner Tito Landrum to break the shutout of Lamar Hoyt. It was a 2-1 ball game. Then Eddie Murray came to the plate representing the winning run if he could hit it out. He could not. A ground ball to Scott Fletcher ended the game. And Lamar Hoyt, who spent 7 years in minor league baseball, moved closer to the American League Cy Young Award with his 14th straight win. Chicago beat Baltimore 2-1 to lead 1-0. Now this is Don Criqui. Back to Len Berman in Los Angeles.
Thank you, Don. So the visiting team wins game number 1 in both series. Tom Seaver, has to be the most critical game of the year for the Dodgers tonight.
Len, you're right. This is a must-win for the Dodgers. I think you got to look ahead a little bit. If they lose here, they got to go to Veterans Stadium and expect to win 3 in a row. I don't think that's going to happen. You got to remember the Phillies at home have the best record for a home team, 50-31. For the last 4 or 5 years, they've been very, very tough to beat at home, and I think it's be very tough for the Dodgers to go there and win 3 in a row.
So the pressure on Fernando Valenzuela tonight. Fans around the country know he's not the same Fernando he was a year ago.
Well, you know, winning 15 games is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, he pitched 250 innings, and he's the workhorse of this ball club. He had a little slump in the middle of the season, granted, but, you know, you expect certain things from certain players. I talked to Ron Farinowski, the Dodger pitching coach, earlier today. We talked about Fernando, and his troubles came when his shoulders started to move horizontally to the ground. And what Ronnie tried to do was get him drive that right elbow down, get the arm back up on top, get your hand on top of the ball. If his shoulders go flat, he starts to push the ball, and his problems come with control. The ball starts to stay out of the strike zone away, and that was Fernando's problem. It was control.
Dodger fans, a bit down psychologically, I think. How about the players? Should they be?
I don't think the players can be that way. Joe Garagiola mentioned it yesterday. You can make a case for yourself. The Dodgers have got to say, well, we played this team 13 times now. They've only scored 16 runs against us. And it took a 1-0 effort and a beautiful effort from Steve Carlton to do that last night. So I don't think the Dodgers are down at all.
John Denny, Cy Young Award winner?
For me, he is, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Tom. Coming up in just a moment on our pregame report, a rare look and listen right inside the Phillies dugout. That's coming up right after this Olympic moment. Back at Dodger Stadium, for the first time in the annals of the playoffs, we were permitted to put a wireless microphone on Phillies manager Paul Owens and 3 of his coaches. We then quickly turned the tape around to show it to you tonight. Here is a look and listen at some rare tape. Here's what the entire country saw last night. Dodger Stadium at twilight. Steve Carlton for the Phillies. Jerry Royce for the Dodgers. Now here's what nobody heard.
Baseman, Mike Schmidt.
Hello, Smitty. Come on now. Get out of here.
Get up, get up. Atta boy, Herbie. Yeah. Get that card out.
I like that one run.
Now the inside stuff. Darren Johnson called Schmidt Herbie. That's his team nickname. Dave Bristol told him, get that card out. Schmidt had an autographed Joe Garagiola baseball card in his pocket as a good luck charm. The most critical moment for the Phillies, 8th inning, Dodgers threatening. Is Carlton tiring? It's time for pitching coach Claude Osteen to get the bullpen ready.
All right, you can have Holland get up and go along with Lefty and watch how things go.
When Pedro Guerrero walked to load the bases, Osteen went to the phone and then consulted with Paul Owens one more time.
Holland's ready, isn't he? Ready? Yeah, Holland is. Bring him to get him.
The major decision was made. Bring in Al Holland.
Hell of a job, that guy.
An irony here. Steve Carlton didn't know Paul Owens was mic'd. Lefty kept silent anyway.
Two outs, got him loaded, kids. They just got to get the hitter. All right? Let's get him out, man. Let's go.
Holland facing Mike Marshall. Bases loaded, 2 outs.
Hey, baby! Hey, boy, Al! Hey, baby!
The Phillies had escaped the 8th. One more hurdle to clear. 9th inning. The tying run on second. Dodger Stadium alive. Greg Brock, the batter.
It's one of them. Nice ball, David. Let's go. One, baby. Beautiful, beautiful, baby. Go, Michael. Whitey.
We'd like to thank the Phillies for allowing us to eavesdrop in their dugout. A phone call to the bullpen is just like a phone call at home. No difference. Just call up a friend. And that'll do it for our pregame report. I'm Len Berman. Thanks for watching. Coming up, game number 2 between the Phillies and the Dodgers with Vin and Joe. Right after this report from NBC News.
Philadelphia Phillies, Fernando Valenzuela for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Hi, once again, everybody. I'm Vin Scully, along with Joe Garagiola. Let's put an eye on the pitches. First of all, John Denny.
Well, John Denny, I think, is a shoo-in for the Cy Young Award. He's a right-hander who has great concentration. I think it borders on the same plateau as a Steve Carlton. He has found inner peace within himself, and he's a different type pitcher, great condition. Valenzuela, everybody talks about his screwball, but Vin, he's had to make adjustments. He has. I look for him to bust some fastballs inside with the screwball setting up the fastball. It's a reverse kind of thing, but I think that's what he'll do.
And another study of contrast, Fernando was 8-2 by June and then turned around and went 7-8. Denny was struggling, and by July the 1st, he reeled off a record of 13-1. Right now, the large crowd standing here at Dodger Stadium for our national anthem.
In left field, Jerry Crawford. On the right field line, Terry Tata. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's color guard is from the Los Angeles Police Department. Will you please rise and join in singing our national anthem with Helen Dell at the Dodger Stadium Hammond organ.
Of the Philadelphia Phillies and a member of the Wheeze Kids. Tonight's starting lineup for the Phillies goes like this. Hitting first and playing second base will be Joe Morgan, one of the youngest members of the Wheeze Kids. Hitting second is the oldest member of the Wheeze Kids, Pete Rose. Pete has a 15 consecutive game hitting streak going into playoffs. Hitting third is our power hitter, Mike Schmidt. Hitting fourth will be Sixto Lescano. He came over from San Diego toward the end of the season and really helped us. Hitting fifth will be Gary Matthews, one of the hardest playing guys I've ever played with. Hitting sixth and playing center field is our Gazelle, Gary Maddox. Hitting seventh is Bo Deals, very consistent player behind the plate, and very good player, I might add. Hitting eighth is probably the most underrated player in this league, Ivan DeJesus. I've really been impressed with him this year since I played with him. Hitting ninth and pitching is John Denny, our Cy Young candidate for the year.
The large crowd still filing in. The game will probably start in another couple of minutes, but the crowd's still not in here. This is an awkward time, of course, locally. It's 5:25, so you have a lot of folks just coming out of work, and you have the normal traffic in downtown Los Angeles, so it's a bit of an effort to get here.
Vin, a lot was said as we look at the crowd starting to file in about the background here. Yesterday it was kind of an overcast day, but today it might be a factor with the reflection of those seats in center field, and you saw that as we kind of panned at the center field area. Left-handers a little bit tougher than right-handers to hit here, but I don't know. I think in a playoff or a World Series, if you're in that, you could hit in the Holland Tunnel at midnight.
And certainly Pete Rose and company about ready to play. Bo Diaz stretching out. There is a little bit of sunlight left at this hour, and it is more or less splashing up against the right field bleachers. So for perhaps the first inning, why Mike Marshall and Sixto Lescano might have a little bit of trouble picking up the ball as it comes off the bat. And Bobby Wine gesturing. He doesn't know why the delay. And we'll get underway in a moment. The Dodgers and the Phils, and the Dodgers ready to take the field. There is last night's loser, Jerry Royce, and there's Mike Marshall, and there's Fernando. And of course, Fernando in this town, especially covering his left arm, makes everybody think of the matador about ready to slay the bull. And the Dodgers, of course, feeling somewhat the pressure that it would be asking more than a lot to go to Philadelphia and win 3 in a row. So Fernando, $1 million pitcher, is asked to be just that. And standing next to him is a kid you could write a book about, Jack Fimple. Fimple, the youngster called up from Albuquerque, and if you can see his right hand, he has a hairline fracture of that right hand, and the ring and little finger are taped together, and then it looks like he took too much batting practice. They literally taped the hand to hold it together, Joe, and with all of that, he hit a home run in Cincinnati.
He's an amazing young man. He's a confident young man, and he hears a lot about the pressure, and there's probably no bigger game this year than this one for the Dodgers, and here he is going behind the plate, and he said he knew he was going to catch, and he took the scouting reports home, and he's studying them, and he's got a mental picture of what he has to do. I love that fan club, man. You saw the sign. It says Fimple Fever. Catch it. It'll make you giggle forever. I love it.
Fernando Valenzuela slowly striding to the mound. He did something a little bit unusual. Usually the starting pitcher would stay in the trainer's room, but he was out on the bench early, maybe a little fidgety.
Well, the defense will find Dusty Baker in left field. He still has the miseries with the legs. Kenny Landreau will be in center field. He'll have to roam wide and handsome. Marshall is in right field. He was at first base yesterday, so he's getting a real test. And then at third base, Guerrero. He's in there because of his bat. Russell is the dean of the infield. He'll be the man that's to anchor it down. Sachs, the kid who had problems in the summer throwing the ball, no problems of recent days. Brock is at first base. And Brock batting second is interesting. Fimple, we talked about him as the catcher, and Fernando is the pitcher.
You could indeed write a book about Fernando. He is 2-1 against Philadelphia this year, and he lost the only game against Philadelphia. He lost to Kevin Gross 4-1, August the 26th. He's had a year of extremes. He's had 9 innings under his belt 11 times. He's been chased as early as 2 2/3 innings. And perhaps of all of the things, he threw 4 wild pitches in each of his first 2 years. He has thrown a dozen this year. So immediately you know that he's had problems with his control.
And if you saw the pregame show, this is a great shot of what Tom Seaver was talking about. He has to have that right shoulder drive towards the batter and not be horizontal parallel, and then he just kind of flattens out. And that's something that Ron Peronowski, the pitching coach, will be looking for. And Valenzuela, famous for the screwball, but you watch him use that fastball. Peronowski's really been working with him. Don't be afraid to come inside, and when they start leaning over, much in the days of Sal Magley, when you'd start leaning over for that curveball, he'd bust that fastball in, and you'd be losing 2-1 before you knew it.
Well, Joe Morgan will start it off, followed by Pete Rose and then Mike Schmidt. Morgan in last night's game went 0 for 4 in his leadoff role. Fernando was 8-2 at the start of the year with 4 shutouts, and then he turned around and he was 7-8 the rest of the way, completely opposite of John Denny. Fernando did not have a shutout after May. And Morgan pulls the first one on the ground to Sachs, and he throws it to Brock, and just like that, 1 pitch and 1 away. The Dodgers fully well know how tough it would be, even though they won 5 out of 6 at Veterans Stadium this year. They know how tough it would be to have to go back there and win 3 straight. Philadelphia, an extremely successful club at the Vet. They won 50 of their 81 there. Here's Pete Rose with a 15-game hitting streak in the League Championship Series. Look at that number, 415. So Rose will test Fernando now. 1 out, first inning, just the start of things. And a screwball missing, ball 1.
Rose is a long ways from home plate. Now, you wouldn't think he'd be able to cover that outside zone, but he is kind of looking for that ball to drive it to the opposite field.
The 1-0 pitch, he takes a screwball on the outside corner, and the count 1 ball 1 strike, and he turned and said screwball high to plate umpire Dick Stello. 1 ball and 1 strike to Pete Rose. Fastball, but he missed with it, ball 2, 2-1. Pete Rose hit .235 left-handed, but he hit .283 right-handed during the regular season. He's very tough from this side of the plate. 2 balls, 1 strike. And that's in there. 2-2.
When Fernando throws that fastball outside, what Pernoski's pitching coach would like to have him do is to throw it not really on that outside corner, but a little bit away from it, out of the zone.
Here's his 2-2 pitch. And that is just outside. He thought he had it.
That's the perfect pitch that Pernoski wants, because that really does a job for him, Ben. It'll set up his screwball, and also it'll make those hitters a little bit leery of the strike zone.
And Pernoski muttering because he felt that was a strike. The 3-2 pitch to Pete Rose is taken low. Ball 4. So Fernando, not wild, but just off the corner. And I'm sure he felt the 2-2 pitch was strike 3. You can tell sometimes by his mannerism. You know, he talked about his inconsistencies. But Valenzuela did tie for the team lead in wins with Welsh. And he led the teams in complete games, starts, shutouts, innings, and strikeouts. So he didn't have that bad a year. But here's trouble now. Mike Schmidt. You know, an interesting thing about baseball, especially, Joe, you were talking and speculating about whether they would try to perhaps pitch around Mike, especially after the home run last night. Fernando delivers and gets a strike. Look at Schmidt's numbers. He had 128 walks. He had 148 strikeouts. If you throw in the times he was hit by pitches and sacrifices, he had 283 at-bats this year where he didn't have anything to do with the bat. You know, didn't hit the ball, didn't do anything. That's a lot of at-bats.
Yes, sir.
The pitch in there, strike 2.
It's a real test for Valenzuela, because obviously he can't pitch around Schmidt. He's got to go at him. Mike knows that, and he's made 2 real good pitches in and out. The last one was really that hard, nasty screwball they talk about, because Fernando throws 2 different screwballs, the hard one and that just big breaking off-speed one.
Well, as you heard and read, I'm sure, a notorious low ball hitter is Mike Schmidt. And the screwball is high and outside. Ball 1, 1-2.
It's a good shot to watch Mike Schmidt kind of kickstart that body. When he gets ready to hit that hip, you'll see it kind of wiggle. Musial had the exaggeration. In fact, Musial needed some down-home music, and it had his own act. But watch Schmidt.
1-2 to count to Mike, who has led the National League in home runs 6 times in the last 10 years.
Right there.
Yeah, there it is. And it is low. Ball 2. 2-2. On deck is Sixto Lezcano. He arrived just before midnight on August 31st in the deal with San Diego. And he's hitting cleanup in the LCS. Mike heaving a big sigh. 2 balls and 2 strikes. 1 out, just the start of things. Pete Rose at first base. The 2-2 pitch is swung on and missed. So Mike Schmidt goes down on strike. Strikeout number 1 for Fernando. And with 2 down in the first inning, Sixto Lezcano coming up.
Didn't you find it interesting that Royce said the only bad pitch he made was to Lezcano last night? There's a shot of Schmidt taking a swing. You can see he was completely fooled, because that is not a Mike Schmidt swing.
No, although you have to remember now, he struck out 148 times during the regular season, so he's been known to chase a couple.
But I'll bet you when he strikes out with his regular swing, you can feel a mask pull off your face.
Now with 2 out, here's Sixto, and Lezcano takes a strike. 0-1. Rose is a break-even base stealer, so it's doubtful he's going to go. Stolen 7, caught 7. Although they might want to test Fimple's hand, not so much his arm. Remember, that right hand is heavily taped. Strike 1 pitch to Lezcano inside. Remember, too, the Phillies scored only 14 runs against the Dodgers, and Lezcano, while he was with San Diego, had 11 RBIs, as we study Jack Fimple's right hand once he takes it out of the well there. 1 ball and 1 strike to count. Ball 2, 2-1. Naturally, with the bases empty, Fimple could afford to tuck that hand behind his right leg, but with a runner at first, he cannot have that luxury. Fernando with the count 2-1 on Lezcano. On deck, Gary Matthews. And the fastball. 2-2 the count. Gary Matthews, Sarge as they call him on the Phils. Hard-nosed ball player. 2 balls and 2 strikes, and there goes Rose. The throw to Brock. Pete has stolen it on Fernando. Oh, did he catch him?
Late steal, and once again, we talked about it yesterday. Experience, that was it. It certainly wasn't speed that did it. But that's Pete Rose. He sees, hey, nobody's paying attention. I'm going, and he's got plenty of time. Because not only did he catch Fernando, Sachs was a bit late, and all Brock could do is wait till he gets there, and it was too late.
So now let's see if Philadelphia catches it in. And the 2-2 pitch, a high fly ball to left. Baker going back to the track at the wall. He's got it. So Lescano, a long fly ball to left, and they leave Pete Rose at second base. And the score at the end of half an inning, Philadelphia nothing, and the Dodgers coming up. Here's the way the Dodgers stack up offensively. At second base, leading off, Steve Sachs. At first base, in the number 2 slot, Greg Brock. The number 3 hitter all year in left field is Dusty Baker. And the muscle man, the cleanup man at third, is Pedro Guerrero. Kenny Landreau will be in center field, followed by Mike Marshall in right field. Bill Russin, the veteran shortstop, will hit 7th. Jack Pimple, in contrast, the rookie behind the plate, hitting 8th, and Fernando on the hill. On the mound right now, John Denny. And Denny pitching to Sachs, Brock, and Baker, a 19-game winner, who was also second in the league in earned run average. And a fly ball on the first pitch to Gary Maddox in center field. And with all his gold gloves, that's a cinch. 1 away. We were talking about John Denny and what a year he had. After losing to the Reds July the 8th, Denny's record was 6-5. From the 12th of July on, John Denny went 13-1. And his only loss came the end of August against the Dodgers. Actually, the Phillies played kind of sloppy back of him. He gave up 5 earned runs in 5 innings, and he was gone. Well, here's Greg Brock. Brock is 1 for 7 against Denny, while Rick Monday was 3 for 3 with a couple of RBIs. And Lasorda agonized about playing Monday instead of Brock, and he finally went with the youngster. Good little wiggle on that thing. Strike 1.
That was his slow curveball. You saw a great shot of his concentration. They talk about him having a tunnel.
1 ball, 1 strike. He missed the tunnel that time.
He has a tunnel between the mound and home plate, and he's just able to concentrate so hard. He's a fast worker, as you can see.
Check swing, and the ball is foul, and the count 1-2. But Denny just didn't suddenly burst upon the scene as Bo Diaz puts a new ball back to him. Denny won the ERA title in 1976 when he was with the Cardinals, and in his first full year in the major leagues.
And Claude Osteen was there with the Cardinals with him and remembered it, and it was a mechanical thing, which we'll talk about in a minute.
The 1-2 pitch to Brock, breaking ball in the dirt.
He used to hook the ball. When you see him going to his delivery from that center field shot where he gets the hand behind him, he would bend his wrist and he would hook it, and it would flatten out his curveball.
Here's the 2-2 pitch. Off speed, strike 3 called. So Brock is going to go hungry looking for fastballs. 2 down.
Left fielder.
So John Denny strikes out Greg Brock with a great straight change. And the batter now is Dusty Baker. Baker thoroughly frustrated after last night's game, especially with a runner at third when he popped the ball in the air to Steve Carlton. Bake's numbers were reasonably good, but not for him. He was troubled with bad knees and a groin pull, and he felt it really bothered his swing. Against Philadelphia, he had a very tough year. He had only 100 with just 1 RBIs and no home runs, and that breaking ball is over. 1-1. So they really threw a blanket over it.
Let's go, man.
2 down, first inning, no score. Fastball, but he just showed it to him outside.
His fastball has been clocked at a high of 88. Fernando's was clocked at 86, his fastest.
The 2-1 pitch. Fastball hit to the left is short, and DeJesus can't come up with it. The ball dying on the grass, but Baker doesn't have the legs to perhaps leg it to 2. A younger Baker might very well have gone for an extra base on that, but not now. And DeJesus kicks it.
He just made an error right through the wicket. He didn't get the tailgate down and went right on through. Might add that you saw the ball die in the outfield. You'll see another shot from behind. It's just a major league error is what that is. He just butchered it. But the infield is very slow. The grass is high, so that ball's not going to shoot through there, and it just literally died in that outfield, as you saw.
Well, we mentioned how Philadelphia pitched around Guerrero last night. Fastball for a strike. There is a difference in the Dodger lineup tonight. Last night you had the rookie Marshall hitting behind Guerrero. Tonight you have a veteran Landreau hitting back of him. We'll see what difference that might make in John Denny's pitching. 0-1 to Pedro Guerrero. Either 16 of his first 22 home runs either tied or put the Dodgers ahead early in the year. He meant that much.
Denny has a quick move to first base. It's not a great move, but it's a better than average, and he uses a different tempo in his delivery to the plate because of the release. Although Baker not that big a threat to steal, Denny will be able to keep it close.
1-1 strike to Guerrero. Breaking ball grounded foul by Joe Malfitano, and down the line in the count 1-2.
Ben, it's amazing the influence that Steve Carlton has had on John Denny.
Yeah, the martial arts and everything.
The whole thing, the conditioning, and you can see how fast he is working. And when a pitcher works like that, there you see Lefty, when a pitcher works like that, the infielders are ready. They're anticipating the play. They're on their toes. They're not laying back. You give me a pitcher to work slow, and I'll show you a team that'll make a lot of errors.
1-2 the count to Pedro Guerrero. And the fast one is just outside. Ball 2, 2-2. By winning 19 this year, that's 5 more than Denny had ever won in a year. A couple of years ago with the Cardinals, he won 14. In his last 9 starts, he walked only 6 men. You talk about control. Two and 2 to Pedro Guerrero. Baker at first, 2 out in the first inning, no score. And the crowd much more alive at this hour than they were last night. The difference, of course, for the Dodgers getting out of the first inning unscathed last night, Schmidt's home run. 2-2. Fastball fouled away, and it was in on the hands, and Pedro really didn't get around on it. John Denny did not miss a start this year. Only the second time in his 8-year career he didn't have an injury problem that forced him to miss games. The 2-2 pitch. Fastball, and again Guerrero late and fouled it back.
Ben referred to the martial arts program that Gus Heffling, who is a strength trainer with the Phillies, and Carlton goes through. Denny, an hour a day except on the days that he pitches.
John at the belt. And he throws behind Guerrero. That one slipped and hit him right on the numbers. So Guerrero hit by the pitch. So with 2 out, an error, a hit batter.
Number 44.
If you're going to get hit, here's where you want to get hit. And that particular pitch, it's a slow curveball, get hit right on the old buns. That doesn't hurt.
Especially him. That's right. He's mostly iron.
You can hear it clank.
Kenny Landreau with 2 on and 2 out. Baker at second, Guerrero at first. Landreau with 17 home runs, a career high, and the off-speed pitch missed. Ball 1. Landreau also had 66 RBIs. As we mentioned last night, he's had a bad leg. He was hit by a Nolan Ryan fastball, which will give you a bad leg immediately. Fastball, and that's hit up the middle. Base hit. Here comes Baker to score. Guerrero stopping at second.
Number 5, right fielder,
So the Dodgers get 2 breaks. First the error, then a control pitcher hits the batter with 2 strikes, and they cash it in on the base hit by Kenny Landreau. And the batter now is Mike Marshall. One nothing Dodgers, first inning. Marshall followed by Russell. Mike hit .284 during the regular year, and that big sweeping curveball missing. Ball 1, 1-0. Monty Basco, one of Lasorda's trusted aides, taking in the scenery. The 1-0 pitch, a strike. Marshall last night grounded out, hit into a force play, struck out and flied out. But he came up with people aboard, and he was unable to advance them. 1-1 to count. Slow curve, pulled foul over Amalfitano's head. 1-2.
Now it's a trouble curve because he got that curve ball up in his eyes as we look at Lasorda. Marshall has good power to the opposite field. He's got a big gap in right center field. And Denny looks like he's trying to pitch the ball outside.
1-2 to Mike. And a breaking ball down and away. A good save, backhanded by Diaz. One thing that has been driving Paul Owens to distraction, the Phillies make so many errors against the Dodgers. They've made 15 errors in the last 13 games against the Dodgers. He tried to time the curve, and he just lifts a fly ball to Gary Maddox. The Dodgers get a run on a hit and an error and a hit batter and 2 left. And at the end of an inning, as Fernando and John Denny eyeball the hitters, Dodgers 1, Phillies nothing. Piloting the Goodyear Blimp Columbia, and the cameraman is George Simpson. A magnificent panoramic shot of Dodger Stadium and the surrounding area. Now back on the ground, Gary Matthews, Gary Maddox, and Bo Diaz in the second inning. Dodgers 1, Phillies nothing. That's a strike. 0-1.
There's 2 things that he does that really kind of get to me. He gets on that front toe, and if he gets a base hit, the first thing he does is knock his hat off.
The strike 1 pitch fouled away. 0-2. He punched holes in the Dodger pitching staff. Although the Phils only won 1 game, it certainly wasn't his fault. Matthews hit .342 against the Dodgers during the regular year. Sarge can hack away. 0-2. 1 ball and 2 strikes.
That was quite a tribute. Joe Morgan said, toughest player I've played with.
Yeah, ever, and he's played with a lot of them.
Yes, sir, and some good ones.
1-2 the count to Gary Matthews. And the fastball is hammered to left field. See you later. Home run in the left field bleachers. So the #1 Phil got a low fastball and jerked it out. And just like that, a 1-1 tie.
No doubt about it. And Fernando, almost in disbelief, he knew the minute that ball was touched off that it was gone.
So evidently a case again of a misplaced fastball. Look at this. He golfed it out.
And he watches it. Look at that. He knows. If you hit him that well, you want to watch him. He's still looking at it. Nah, he just wants to make sure, yeah, it's gone. And here he goes. A beautiful trip.
Fernando had allowed 16 home runs during the regular year as he gets Maddox to go after the first one. 0-1. According to the speed gun, maybe Valenzuela threw a little harder than he normally does. The speed gun's at 87 miles per hour. That's a little bit high for him.
Sometimes when they throw that hard, the good stuff just flattens out. Maddox, by the way, took some 30 minutes extra batting practice with Coach Dave Bristol earlier today.
1-1 pitch to Gary is a line drive base hit into left field. So the Phils come storming back on a home run by Matthews, a line single to left by Maddox, and the batter will be Bo Diaz.
Batting 7.
And with nobody out, you can look for something maybe to happen here because he's got good speed at first base, and Maddox and Diaz can handle a bat. He tried it last night, a hit and run play. As we look at Osteen, Owens, Carlton in the background, and Bobby Wine.
Diaz, the catcher, grounded into 10 double plays during the year. And then you have DeJesus and the pitchers. So let's see if they put any kind of a play aboard. Maddox held on by Greg Brock at first. Fernando has a good move. Maddox, of course, a veteran and a knowledgeable base runner. One tie, top of the second inning.
I think he was just measuring him on that first pitch. If you had to pick a pitch, you'd pick it right here because it's certainly ideal situations. You got a man who's around the plate, a guy who can handle a bat, and Diaz, good speed at first base. I'd look for him to run right here. 1
ball and no strikes. We'll watch Maddox. He goes. The pitch is fouled away, and Diaz, fooled by it, lost control of his bat. It went way out beyond the mound. And the bat boy, Bruce Wendell, who is an executive in the music business, comes to the ballpark in a Rolls Royce. And for Wendell, he was quite a Philadelphia story. Watch Bo.
He threw the bat to get a piece of it, and that's what he has to do. He has to do everything he can to get the bat on the ball. He can't wait for the good pitch because that is hit and run. And of course, that's the difference between run and hit. Run and hit, you have an option.
You know, Bill Giles didn't want Bruce Wendell to be the bat boy because they were 0-6 here this year. But the players outvoted the president. Big chopper foul outside of third and down the line, and the count 1-2. The Phillies have not run against the Dodgers, basically because in the Dodgers' 11 victories, the Phillies only led in 1 inning, and you don't run too much when you're behind. So they've only stolen 3 bases in 14 attempts against the Dodgers this year. 1-2. Fernando Valenzuela and John Denny, game 2 of the National League Championship Series. If you missed it, earlier today, the Chicago White Sox nipped Baltimore 2-1. The 1-2 pitch to Diaz. Screwball hit down to shortstop. Russell shovels to Sachs. He goes to Brock, and there's the double play. And boy, what an effort at second base.
Yes, sir. Sachs did a tremendous job of getting rid of that ball, because you talk about a guy upending you. Gary Maddox did a good job. He did everything he could to prevent a double play. Now, Sachs knows he's going to get it and gets the ball off, and then he just gets dumped. I mean, that is really leaving the scene of the accident right there.
So Sachs climbing Gary Maddox, and they get the double play, and with 2 down in this 1-1 tie, Ivan De Jesus, the shortstop who was weaned in the Dodger organization, coming up. He slices one down the right field line, foul, out of play, in the count 0-1. I always marvel at the legs of Ivan De Jesus. His thighs look like they should have been given to a sumo wrestler, at least to a man much larger than he is. Maybe one reason why he has played 8 years without ever missing a game to injury. 1-1.
And with those tight pants, boy, they take advantage of it. I mean, those baggy pants we wore, if you were in shape, you were out of shape, just trying to get in. These guys, look at them.
Yeah, they paint them on.
Spray paint them, I bet.
1-1 to De Jesus. He only missed 4 games all year. That's a strike. 1-2. Fernando Valenzuela touched up for a home run by Gary Matthews to get Philadelphia even. Got a double play ball to ease the burden, and now trying to get De Jesus and get out of the inning. Just held up, no swing, says first base umpire John McSherry. And John, when he tells you no swing, it's pretty obvious to everybody in the ballpark. 2-2, the count to Ivan De Jesus. 2 out, 1-1, top of the second. Screwball fouled off. Fernando Valenzuela, who has already won a Cy Young Award, against John Denny, who is the #1 candidate in the league to win the Cy Young Award this year. There's a Cy Young Award winner when it comes to looks and talent, huh? Cary Grant and his wife Barbara.
And the other lady, Mrs. Vin Scully.
Well, that ain't no bad crowd to hang around with.
No, sir.
2-2 the count to Ivan De Jesus. And a showcase fastball way outside.
Boy, it upsets me when people confuse me with him.
Yeah, I can see that. You're tall.
Is he handsome?
And he missed. So Fernando, in 1981, he would saw that corner off until you would really think he could throw it. In 1983, he doesn't quite do it.
John Denny.
So he has walked 2, and now a pretty good hitting pitcher in John Denny coming up.
He put on a pretty good exhibition during batting practice. He not only is a pretty good hitter, he's got a pretty good power. Don't look at the averages. I mean, you don't look for pitchers to have big averages. Get that bat on the ball, and he can drive it if he gets a hold of it.
And he started him with a screwball, so you know he knows he's a good hitter. He wasn't just going to go up there and give him a fastball. So Denny, who looks like he's all business, in the count 0-1. De Jesus at first with 2 out. 1-1, top of the second. There's the fastball.
These are kind of tough times for John Denny. He's from, he lives in St. Louis now, but his family's from Prescott, Arizona, and we all know what a terrible tragedy going on in this great state of Arizona with all those floods, and his brother had some problems.
Last night, after last night's game, we had a slight inkling of what the good folks in Arizona must be going through with that torrential downpour here in Los Angeles. Denny is a great bunter, but of course with 2 out, he doesn't figure to be bunting. He sacrificed 17 times this year. I mean, he can get the ball down. He also had 14 hits. But Fernando struggling now at the count, 2 balls and 1 strike. Dodgers scored in the first inning an unearned run, an error, a hit batter, and a base hit by Landreau, and Matthews' home run got Philadelphia even. 2-1 to Denny. Fastball popped up back of the plate. Jack Fimple coming back to the screen at the base of the screen, and it's on the other side. 2-2. Fimple's coach at Arizona State is here. They're talking about the flood in Arizona, and he is studying for his doctorate. And he was coming over, and he asked the police, if you have to evacuate my house, never mind the furniture, please get my books. I have about $4,000 worth of research that I want saved.
Jim Brock, huh?
That's
Sounds like him.
2-2. And the screwball is in the dirt. And Fernando now, he is just a struggling left-hander. Meanwhile, Commissioner Bowie Kuhn in Peter O'Malley's box. 3-2. The count to John Denny. Brock is deep at first. He's not holding DeJesus, who will be going. DeJesus goes, and the fastball is lined into left center. Baker is there. But Fernando isn't fooling people. A home run, a single, and a line drive out. And at the end of an inning and a half, the Phillies won and the Dodgers won. Right now, we pause briefly for station identification. This is the NBC television network.
You are tuned to CFT-OTD Channel 9 in Toronto, Cable 8.
In the bottom of the second inning, Bill Russell will start it off in a 1-1 tie. Russell, Fimple, and Valenzuela. Off speed for a strike. Bill Russell and Steve Yeager are the only Dodgers who have played on all 5 of the division winners since 1974. Waved at. Denny fooling him with a lot of motion and off-speed stuff in the count 0-2. John Denny, 19-game winner, and what a story. Tried to throw too hard, I think, that time anyway. 1-2. Dodgers got an unearned run. Landreau singled home Baker, who was aboard on the error, and Matthews homer to tie it up. And that got the corner. So Bill Russell caught looking.
Tommy Lasorda had a meeting in Cincinnati to turn the club around. I wondered if he had one before this game.
Catcher, Jack Fimple.
No, I did not have a meeting with the team per se, but I will talk to players individually about tonight's game and what we feel that they have to do in order for us to beat John Denny.
Well, here is one of the favorite stories of 1983 in Los Angeles, the rookie Jack Fimple, who takes a strike. Fimple called up from Albuquerque, playing with a broken hand, hit a home run, one of his 2. 1 ball and 1 strike to count. In the fall of 1980, Jack Fimple played on the same Cleveland Instructional League team as Von Hayes, who is, of course, now with Philadelphia. That's when Fimple became a catcher. When he graduated high school, he went in the Coast Guard for 3 years. He never really thought much about baseball as a career. 1-2 to Jack Fimple. And the fastball just missed.
Diaz is really giving the umpire behind the plate, Stello, a good look at all those pitches. Notice how he catches that ball and doesn't really try to steal it, just give him a good look.
Fimple slicing it foul down the right field line out of play, back into the crowd. 1-1 tie in the second inning.
Then they talk about a laid-back crowd here in L.A., but as soon as they tie it, the air goes out of the balloon, doesn't it?
That's right. Last night, they were very, very quiet because of Mike Schmidt's home run. They made a lot of noise in the first inning. Turned off on the home run by Matthews, and Fimple is turned off on the breaking ball. So that's the 3rd strikeout for John Denny. And all of those strikeouts, the 3 of them, the hitters have been caught looking. His most strikeouts in a game, he had 10. That was in an August 9th no-decision game against Pittsburgh. And with 2 out, Fernando Valenzuela, pretty good hitting pitcher coming up. Fernando, home run, 9 RBIs, and 2 for 3 against Denny this year. Ball 1.
He's got pretty good power. I know he's got a couple of home runs, but in batting practice in that game he plays, he always pops one in the seats, it seems.
And he laid off an inside fastball, and the count 2-0. Bobby Wine, in talking about John Denny's fastball, said, I've noticed this year a lot of good hitters are swinging over the ball. There's ball 3. In other words, he has come up, it's not really a sinker, it is just a fastball that seems to dip, and it has really been a big part of his success. He's behind 3-0 to Valenzuela with 2 out. And he's walked him.
How do you explain that?
Remember that note we mentioned earlier? That Denny had walked only 6 batters in his last 9 starts. And in an inning and 2/3 tonight, he has walked a hitter and hit a batter. And Paul Owens and Bobby Wine and Claude Osteen wondering why.
And look at Osteen. He made a note of that right away. And I'm sure he'll be talking to him about it. I like what Paul Owens said. He was accused of managing his club by committee. He said, what am I supposed to do? Pay these guys to sit around and watch me be smart? Let them all work.
Well, here is Steve Sachs coming off a big night last night, but he flied to center first at bat. And, of course, Fernando kind of clogging the bases at first base. So Sachs has some of his speed taken away with Fernando's presence. 1-1, bottom of the 2nd inning, 2 out. Off speed, look at that. He flinched and the bottom dropped out of it. 0-1. Steve Sachs, Rookie of the Year last year, has picked up and had a fine sophomore year. Little breaking ball hit wide to third. Here comes Mike Schmidt and gets him. So a walk to Fernando, and they leave him. No runs, no hits, a man left. The Dodgers have left 3. It's a 1-1 tie at the end of 2. And we'll be back after these messages from your local station. The National League Championship Series, having already given you the American League story today, as the White Sox nip Baltimore 2-1.
Interesting too, Vin, at the same point last night, Carlton had made 19 pitches, Royce 20. Tonight, Fernando's already made 41 pitches and Denny has made 40.
It's quite a contrast. Of course, everything about this series is so interesting, the contrast aspect of it. As we told you, Fernando started off the season great, 8-2, and then turned around under 500. Denny was struggling, and then all of a sudden, he was almost unbeatable. It went 13-1. Joe Morgan. Then Pete Rose and Mike Schmidt. Morgan has struggled against Dodger pitching during the regular year. But the little guy known to perform miracles under pressure, he thought that was high. Strike 1. Muttering to Stello. 40 years old, my foot. 0-1. And another one over for a strike.
Kind of a tough day for Joe. The funeral of a good friend who coached him, Mr. McRae, and he was talking about it before the game and hoping he would be here.
Here's the strike 2 pitch, a little Joe. Outside ball 1. He's come a long way. You know, in the middle of September, you hate to even talk about it, he was last in the National League in hitting. And then on his 40th birthday, he found the fountain of youth. 1-2. Got it. So Fernando picks up his second strikeout. He had got Mike Schmidt in the first inning, and that'll bring up Pete Rose. You know, when you see a Morgan who is 40 and a Rose, and there's so much talk about age, keep one thing in mind about the big leagues now. There are approximately 75 players in the big leagues right now who are over 35 years of age. Ground ball foul. So the game has really changed. It is not for the young, as Dave Bristol makes a good play.
Morgan, with his Wheeze kids before, kind of letting you know. In fact, he told one writer, he said, you don't play this game by hitting with a birth certificate.
Here's the strike 1 pitch to Feet, who certainly doesn't, and that's in there. 0-2. Rose, among all of the other accomplishments, is the only player ever to play 500 or more games at 5 different positions. A remarkable man. 0-2. Fastball low, and he was at the ballpark early. You know why? So he could watch the Chicago White Sox-Baltimore game.
And just as a caption, Pete says when you're 40 like I am, you go into a slump, you say, oh, he's getting old, he's losing his reflexes. You go in the same slump when you're young, you say, well, he'll snap out of it.
That's true. Aspect, check swing, soft line drive to Fernando. Line drive really only to describe the trajectory.
I talked to Mike Schmidt and asked him what kind of pitches he expected from Fernando. Here's what he said.
Well, I hope to be able to get a fastball to hit each time I go up there. The key, I think, not only to myself, but to all the right-handed hitters on the Phillies, is to take advantage of the fastball when you get it. So if you see Fernando throw a fastball to our right-handed hitters and we foul it off, or we swing and miss it, or we take it, then we got to fight that hard screwball and his other 3 pitches. So the key is to put that fastball in play when you get it.
So Mike Schmidt, looking for the fastball, takes outside, ball 1. We have 2 out, top of the 3rd inning, a 1-1 tie. For Mike, the 3rd year he has hit at least 40 home runs. And of course he broke the seal on the series last night. 1 ball and no strikes. 2-0. On deck, Sixto Lezcano.
As you see from the center field shot, that fastball that he's talking about looking for, Fernando's got to get it right in at the belt buckle. And Schmidt is striding towards the plate, not towards the pitch, because he wants to keep that left shoulder locked, so he keeps it in play. It's a tough pitch coming up.
2-0. And he threw him a screwball, and it got the outside part of the plate. 2-1.
Well, Mike is still looking for number 1, ain't he?
Where is it? What do the players say, although it doesn't sound very grammatical? They call it sitting on or setting on.
Sitting on, yeah.
2-1. There's the fastball, but he got it in a perfect spot, in on the hands.
That's where he has to get it, and he's got to tie him up. Otherwise, he'll be backing up 3rd if he lets this big guy get his arms out there, because he'll drive it.
Dodger Stadium, the scene of Game 2. It is not a multi-purpose stadium. It was built by private funds for one sport, baseball. And it looks it. 2-2 to Mike. Fastball. And he wasn't quite ready. What did he say about the fastball fouling off, and then you're going to get the hard screwball?
A hard screwball or one of the other 3 pitches. Fernando thought he'd get it by him, and Mike just didn't quite get it. It's a pretty good battle right here. It's a tough thing to ask a pitcher that if he's going to throw a fastball, that the target is the belt buckle of a big guy like this who can hit it out of any ballpark in America.
2-2. And a high fly ball to left field, but it's playable. Baker indicates he has it, and he's true to his word. So Philadelphia out in order, 1-2-3. And at the end of 2.5 innings, the Phillies a run on 2 hits, the Dodgers a run on 1 hit, and ain't it glad to be a kid and be at a league championship game. On a calendar, a 9-year-old wearing glasses and a big baseball cap. It has to be big to fill up all those dreams. Isn't that
a great picture?
Oh, I love it.
That's a great.
Back to the big kids. Greg Brock will start it off. 0-1. Brock, interestingly enough, hit a home run in every park his rookie year except in Pittsburgh. Ironically, the same was true for Mike Schmidt. 1-1 to Greg. Brock stopped hitting home runs the 7th of September. 1-1. Big chopper down to second. Morgan was ready to jump in the air. Remember last night that ball went over his head. He was all poised to jump, but it stayed down. 1 away.
Of course, with that glove Joe's got, he's got the smallest glove in baseball. It's a Dick Bartell at the All-Star game showed me his glove. It's about that size. I know guys that drive buses that wear bigger gloves than that.
Yeah, that might even be smaller than Bill Mazeroski's glove, and I always thought that was the smallest ever. But this one literally fits like a glove.
It really does.
Here's Baker fouling it off. Dusty was aboard on the error by DeJesus, and it turned out to be very important. He took second when Guerrero was hit by a pitch, and he rode home as Landreau grounded up the middle for a base hit. So we're 1-1, bottom of the 3rd inning. On a very pleasant evening as far as the weather is concerned. Ball hit to Gary Maddox. End of story. 2 down. Oh, we saw a very exciting Chicago White Sox Baltimore Orioles game. Baltimore wrapped up until 2 out in the 9th when they got a run, but it wasn't enough, and the White Sox won it 2-1. Game 2 in the American League Championship Series tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Tony Kubek and Bob Costas right there to tell it to you. And of course, then we will pick up the story in the National League, 3 p.m. Eastern Time Friday afternoon. 2 down, and here's Guerrero. Ball 1. Guerrero hit by a pitch, big off-speed pitch. That tied him up. He didn't know what to do with that thing. 1 ball, 1 strike. When you look at John Denny, it's only right, I guess, to expect a fastball because he's a big man. He's 6'3", and very well put together. In fact, his teammates say he might very well be the strongest man in the league at 6'3" and 190. 1 ball and 1 strike to Pedro Guerrero. 2 out, 3rd inning, 1-1 tie. He shows him the fastball, but he keeps it out of the strike zone.
And that is really good pitching. And you notice Diaz, he didn't jerk the ball. He just held it right there and gave him a good look. And now he's working too fast, and Guerrero's going to slow him up. You got the kind of stuff that Denny has or Carlton. Why fool around? Bob Gibson, they got the ball, throw it.
Yeah. They used to say the rookies pitch too fast. They get the ball and throw out a nervous energy, but not anymore. Now it seems to be the thing to do. 2-1 pitch. That's in there, and it was a fastball. Pedro couldn't believe he was going to get another one. Not for a strike anyway. And the count 2-2.
He's got Pedro thinking up there, and you get a hitter doing that, you can put his brain into a Windsor knot.
And back with the junk, and he's out in front of it, and a little pop fly to left, and DeJesus will take care of it. So Denny really doing a masterful bit of pitching there in the 3rd inning, and the Dodgers tiptoe through the 3rd. And at the end of 3, the Phillies a run on 2 hits. Actually, a home run by Gary Matthews. The Dodgers 1 run, 1 hit. It's unearned. Do you have a comment to make about the fact that they say bald-headed men have more male hormones than those with hair?
The preceding announcement was...
I'm just trying to make you feel good.
No. No.
4th inning, a 1-1 tie. Sixto Lezcano takes a hook for a strike, and the count 0-1.
Berman.
1 ball and 1 strike to count. Lezcano, Matthews, and Maddox were in the 4th inning. Gary Matthews homered in the 2nd. Kenny Landros singled home a run in the 1st. And into the 4th we go. Ball 2, 2-1.
You might take note of where Fernando stands on the mound with the right-hand batter. He's on the 3rd base side of that rubber. It gives him a pretty good shot at the screwball. It gives him just a little better angle.
2-1 to Lezcano. Fastball chopped to 3rd. Guerrero is there. Easily to Brock, 1 away. It is a magnificent time of day here on the West Coast. It's about 6:23 local time. The sun slowly dipping over the horizon, and the cloud work overhead. A little bit left over from Hurricane Priscilla, we understand, and fortunately not affecting the play down on the field at Dodger Stadium. There's room for over 16,000 cars in the terrace parking area. It's really quite a place to see, and we're not trying to be provincial. Here is Gary Matthews, and he lifts it to straightaway center, and that's Landro country. And that'll be that. 2 down.
I'll say one thing, though. Last night with that rain, getting out of his parking lot was like demolition derby.
Oh, it was awful. So Gary Matthews, who homered in the 2nd inning to account for the Philadelphia run, gives way now to Gary Maddox, who singled to left field in the 2nd inning. Interestingly, in checking the speed gun on Fernando, remember we told you when Matthews homered, he hit an 87-mile-per-hour fastball, and that's a little high for him. Ever since that home run, he's been throwing around 83. So he might have overthrown that one pitch, and it cost him. Ball 1. Gary Maddox, including his base hit tonight, is 5 for 10 against Fernando as Basgol, Lasorda, and Peranoski sweated out. Ball 2. I would think all the pressure, Joe, would be on the Dodgers. they would appear to have to win tonight.
Oh, they have to, because as Tom Seaver was talking about, I can't see him going back to Veterans Stadium and sweeping 3.
Here's the 2-0 pitch. 2-1, especially against a ball club that won 50 games at home, even though the Dodgers did go in there and win 5 out of 6 in the regular season. Boy, 50, that's great. The Dodgers, by the way, won 48 here. Ground ball inside third and down the line, so Maddox wearing out Fernando. He's 6 for 11. And by the time Baker picks it up, he has himself a stand-up double at second base, and he's 2 for 2 tonight.
It looked like a curveball, a slow curveball inside, and he stayed with it. Watch it. There it is. It's inside, right past Guerrero, and it's a cinch 2-base hit.
Guerrero appeared to start a little bit late on the ball, too, which is a problem in this ballpark. When Dodger Stadium was built, it was copied a little bit from an idea they have at Korakuen Stadium in Tokyo, the so-called dugout seats, which are literally seats where your eyes are level with the ground. Here now is Bo Diaz, ball 1. And you can see Mike Brito directly behind home plate in the white jacket and the Panama hat and a speed gun right alongside the TV camera. 1 ball and no strikes. The screwball way outside. So he's 2-0 to Diaz. There's Mike. He's got a cigar you could hit 300 with it.
Yeah, there's some cigar.
Looks like an old pine tree found somewhere. 2-0. Mike, of course, is primarily responsible for finding Fernando. Fernando from Echequia. In fact, to quote the golf writer Bernard Darwin, Fernando came from the back of beyond. The fastball to strike, 2-1. Bo Diaz, who grounded into a double play in the second inning, trying to pick up Gary Maddox with 2 out in the 4th in a 1-1 tie. Half swing, they'll check it first. No swing, says Big John. 3-1 to count to Bo Diaz. At second base, Gary Maddox. 1-1 in the 4th. Phillies 1 run, 3 hits. The Dodgers 1 run, 1 hit. And the fastball is in there. I'm surprised Diaz took that pitch, aren't you?
I think that it was just too good a pitch. He was looking for something inside, and Fernando laid it right on that outside corner, because it looks like he's not going to give him that good ball to hit.
3-2 the count to Bo. And the screwball is hit just foul outside of third. When Diaz was with the Cleveland Indians in 1981, it's hard to believe, but it's true, he hit 7 home runs. That was tops on the team. Bo Diaz. He hit 15 this year. 3-2. Fastball. He was a little late and poked it. Foul down the right field line. It'll drop untouched. So that was a case of a good pitch, but as you pointed out earlier, Joe, Diaz throwing his bat at 1 to get a piece of it, and that time he just did nick it.
He just did nick it and saved himself a strike. Valenzuela has made up his mind that he's got an option of either pitching to Diaz or DeJesus, who's coming up next, because he's got first base open, and then pitching to Diaz, he's going to make him hit his pitch. He's not going to give in to him.
3-2. Fastball. Big chopper. Russell waiting for the hop. Sets for the throw. Gets him. And they leave Maddox at second base. No runs. 1 hit. Gary's doubled. And they leave him. And at the end of 3.5 innings, the Phillies won. The Dodgers won. And the Rosenbag ain't talking.
Chuck Connors with his Brooklyn Dodger hat on. Former Dodger player. You'll see him in Yellow Rose Sunday at 10 o'clock. Chuck, by his own admission, hit the Los Angeles area code one year, 213.
Here's Kenny Landreau, who had a base hit to drive in a run. 1-1, bottom of the 4th. Landreau, Marshall, and Russell. Breaking ball missed. So he's behind 2-0 is John Denny. Here's another case of the hitter having given the pitcher a bad time during the year. Right, 2-1.
4 innings, Fernando's made 71 pitches, 43 strikes. Denny has made 53 pitches, and he's got 32 strikes.
The 2-1 pitch. Waved at the off-speed pitch, and the bottom again dropped out of it. 2-2. One tie in the 4th inning. Big chopper foul outside of first down the line.
I tell you, Vin, I guess maybe, sure, I played and all that, but it's amazing to me now. Landro got a base hit on a fastball, and he has seen nothing that he can hit with the fastball. Breaking balls, off-speed breaking balls. Sign of the good pitcher.
Now let's see what he gets. 2-2. Denny spinning that ball around behind his back. And Landro tired of waiting. When Carlton throws his slider, he puts 2 fingers lengthwise on the seam, so the ball is a little bit off balance. Off the center. There's a ground ball up the middle, and it was off speed, and Landro is able to wait on it and roll it to center. So
that was a good piece of hitting by Kenny Landro, sending it right back up. Here is Denny on that pitch. Now he's in pretty good shape to field it. He goes for it. He just does not get it, and in the center field for a base hit. But he was ready for it. If it would have come right back to him.
He's 6'3", so he can climb the ladder. Here's Mike Marshall, who is 6'5". He gives you a good strike zone. Marshall does not sacrifice. Let's put it this way. He has not sacrificed this year. If you're thinking about that possibility. Of course, then you have Russell and Pimple to follow. Marshall had 17 home runs, 65 RBIs. Boy, they're really keeping an eye on Landro. Landro this year stole 30 bases while being caught only 11 times.
It's a good move that Denny gives you. It's a quick move, and he's got you diving back. There are a couple ways to stop those base runners. One of them is to keep throwing over there. That's the 3rd time that Landro's had to dive. That'll take a little spring out of your legs. And the other way is to just hold that ball. Now, Landro, watch him study the pitcher. Look at those eyes.
Fouled away. Marshall trying to crank up on an off-speed pitch. Fouled it off. Landro last year stole 31 bases. That was his career high. He came back this year with 30. But he's really stolen a lot more, considering the fact he's had a bad leg and he hasn't had very many opportunities to run in the latter part of the year. 0-1.
What a lot of base runners will study will be the left side of the pitcher. Once he starts any movement on the left side, and then they look at that right heel. If it doesn't go up, away they go.
He was leaning back to first, and the pitch fouled back. So Landro has not been able to read Denny at all, not indicated by that last pitch.
There's much controversy about the stolen base. It doesn't win as many games as it's supposed to, but make no mistake about it, I don't care about anything. When you've got speed, you got the other ball club thinking, the catcher thinks fastball, infielders are moving, it just stirs it up. It makes everybody move.
0-2, the count of Marshall. Landro at first, 4th inning, a 1-1 tie. Fastball hit by the mound, backhanded by Morgan. He's going to tag the bag and get the force on Landro.
JoJo's not happy. Look at him.
Yeah.
They had some confusion on that play. Obviously, watching now. Drove it right past Denny, who thought he had it for a minute. Now, Morgan's ready to flip it to DeJesus, and whoops, you take it, I got it, and he just barely gets Landro. One more look. There was Morgan ready to flip it, and he says, oh, man, nobody there. I better get it myself. And look at Pete Rose.
So we'll see now, with that little mistake around second base, if it turns out to be a pivotal play or not. Bill Russell, the batter. Russell struck out in the second. Big breaking curve outside. Ball 1, 1-0. Russell, a contact hitter. They usually put plays on with him. And Marshall, despite the fact he is 6'5" and a big man, runs well. So they could put on a hit-and-run play. 1-0. He wanted to pull the trigger and almost fell down holding up.
2 breaking balls. Now he's way ahead, 2 balls and no strikes. With a slow curveball like that, I'm sure Lasorda would like to pick a pitch, but if he ever had an ideal situation, it would be here. A control pitcher behind 2-0. Russell not known as a home run hitter. I'd look for something to happen right here.
2-0. Marshall doesn't go, and the pitch is ball 3. You know, it was typical of Russell's career. His only home run of the year came with 2 out in the top of the 9th in Cincinnati. It turned a 2-1 loss into a 3-2 win for Lasorda. And that's a strike. It also came 5 days after the death of Bill Russell's father.
Russell giving Amalfitano a good look to see what's happening. Does he want something? 3-1?
Figures now Marshall might go. And Denny's off the rubber. Russell over the years has been a difficult hitter to strike out. So let's see if they turn him. No, they don't. And there's a little pop fly into shallow right. That's going to be trouble. It'll fall. Marshall keeps on going. Lescano's throw is not in time.
You really have to give Marshall a lot of credit on that, because Lescano does have a good arm, and Marshall, he watched the ball and decided it was not going to be caught, and he took off. Watch Marshall. He's barreling. He never does look at the coach. The play was in front of him. He knew it was going to drop, and he just took off. That was a good piece of base running.
A bloop single to right, and Lescano was just too far away to reasonably expect to make the play. But of course, he did keep the ball down, so it could be cut off, and Russell had to stay at first. I just heard Diaz say I could read his lips for 2 words. He said, no mistakes. Now, remember, there was a mistake around second base with Morgan and DeJesus, and we'll see just how important that is.
And I know a lot of pitchers would say, sure, easy for you to say no mistakes.
Yeah, you go behind the plate and tell me don't make any mistakes.
That's right. You get back there, dummy.
Well, here is Jack Pimple, a kid who did well in pressure situations in the last 2 months of the season. He hit .333 with men in scoring position. That's the highest of any Dodger in the last 2 months. 0-1.
You know, it's one of the things you think about as a catcher. There's 1 man out. You put a play on here. I mean, a bunt play, and the worst you get out of it is second and third and 2 outs. The double play is what you want to stay away from. So you got to think of all that.
You know, one thing, it wouldn't surprise anybody in town if Pimple tried to squeeze. That is one of Lasorda's favorite plays. Strike 1 pitch, they're going to pitch out just in case. They're thinking of it.
I was thinking about that, because the worst you come out of it is second and third and 2 outs.
1-1. The count to Jack Pimple with Marshall at third. And of course, Marshall will tell you if the squeeze is on. He has got to break just as the pitcher is releasing the ball. Otherwise, you have a busted squeeze. 1-1. And there's the bunt, but it's not a squeeze, and I'll tell you why. Mike Schmidt put a great fake on Marshall just as Denny was delivering, and Mike was frozen. So a very, very heads-up play by Mike Schmidt.
It's one of those subtle plays that happen, but in a spot like this, you would figure the one thing Lasorda doesn't want is here's the replay. You see Schmidt's starting to come in. The ball is bunted foul, but Lasorda doesn't want a bunted squeeze, and it could be one of those plays where you want to see that ball on the ground before you break the home plate and make sure the ball is down on the ground.
Now 1-2, you would expect Pimple to be just trying to hit the ball anywhere. But Russell at first, Marshall at third, 1 out in the 4th, a 1-1 tie. Fast one, and it's just off the corner. Denny shook his head. I think John thought he might have had a piece of it, but Stello said no. Russell held on by Rose. Marshall down the line from third. 2-2 to Jack Pimple. 1 out. Russell goes. The pitch is high. The throw to Morgan. They've got Russell hung up. Morgan keeps looking at Marshall. Now he's going after Marshall, and he bounces it to Diaz. Diaz will fake an underhand to Smitty, who'll tag him out. And safely at second is Russell. So if it was a delayed double steal, Marshall did not seem to come at the right time, but Russell was going on the pitch.
Russell was looking to see what would happen. He wanted to draw the throw, which he did. Now, he does the right thing by going back, and Marshall has to make Morgan commit. Morgan sees that he's got Marshall hung up. Here's where the Phillies get a break. Diaz makes a good play on the bad throw. Marshall thought it would get by him, and now Diaz runs him back. And look at Marshall try to reach Diaz, and if he touches him, he claims interference. But he tried to grab him, and the third base umpire says, no way, no way.
So the play goes 2-4, 2-5. From Diaz to Morgan to Diaz to Schmidt. Mike Marshall still hot. He's also hung out to dry between third and home. Now 3-2, Russell at second with 2 out, and we still have a 1-1 tie. Slow curve hit at Morgan, and he goes up the ladder to grab it. So the Phillies get away with a couple of plays, including the confusion at second base. The Dodgers, with 2 base hits, come up empty. They leave 1. And at the end of 4, a 1-1 tie. We'll be back after these messages from your local station.
Here's the play again, and you'll see where Marshall thinks he has interference. Now Diaz running him back, and Marshall now sees, uh-oh, I'm in no man's land. Diaz gives the ball third base. Watch Marshall try to grab Diaz as he goes down. Right there. If he could have just hit me, Marshall says, we would have had interference. But he does not, and Stello's right on top of that play, and they both call it. Look at that right hand. No doubt about it. And look at Stello. He's going to go after him. No, Mike, forget it. I called it. You're out.
And we go to the 5th inning. Now that the dust is settled, a 1-1 tie. Ivan DeJesus, followed by John Denny, and then Joe Morgan.
Vin, does that tell you something about the things that Lasorda will try to score a run? They've been hard to come by.
Oh, yeah. They have been desperate of late.
Squeezing a double steal in the same inning.
DeJesus walked in the 2nd inning, and he bunts foul, so it's catching 0-1. You remember last night, the Dodgers in the 1st inning had sacked Single and immediately had Russell tried to sacrifice. So the number 2 hitter was sacrificing last night, indicative of the way the Dodgers have been playing throughout the month of September. Of all the division winners, the Dodgers were the ones who struggled the most. For instance, in the American League, Baltimore and Chicago literally breezed in, especially Chicago. Half swing, and he didn't get it, and Fimple didn't catch it, and DeJesus is safely aboard at first base.
Watching Fimple's reaction, he thought he had that ball. Have to watch and see what happened. Take a look at it.
The pitcher, John Denny.
It hit in front of the plate right through the wicket. Look at him. He thought, where'd it go?
Yeah, it really skidded instead of bouncing. If it bounces, it hits him and he blocks it, but it skidded.
That's why you got to get down on those knees, and that's the play that you practice. I know it sounds silly for a grown man to sit there and have another guy bounce balls that bounce off your chest, but you have to practice it.
Let's see what Denny does. Remember, we told you he's a very, very good bunter, and he fouls it away on 1. 17 sacrifices. In fact, the next on the staff, Carlton, had a half a dozen. So John really knows how to bunt. We'll see if he's able to execute against Fernando.
Boy, as hard as they're charging him, where do you think he'll try to bunt that ball? I think he'll make Brock field it, but Brock, he's fearless when it comes to throwing to get that lead man.
Yeah, he has an excellent arm. We'll see now an interesting point in a 1-1 tie in the 5th inning. John is bunting and got it down, as he usually does, and Fimple has to throw to Sachs. So for the 18th time, you talk about helping yourself. No wonder he's won 19 games.
He fields his position. He holds the runners close. He hits the ball when he has to. More importantly, he bunts. Now, the importance of that, sure, you move the man in scoring position, but you stay away from that inning-ending double play. The good ball clubs, they stay away from the double play on offense, and they keep it in play on defense, and that's how you win.
Well, here's Joe, who grounded out and struck out 0 for 2. Top of the 5th inning, 1 run, 3 hits, and an error for Philadelphia. 1 run, 3 hits, no errors for the Dodgers. A home run in the game by Gary Matthews. So DeJesus, who runs well, is at second base with 1 out. Ball 1, 1-0. By the way, if you're keeping score, DeJesus struck out on a wild pitch and reached. 1-0. Ball 2. So Fernando spinning a big rainbow curveball that time and almost got that one in the dirt. 2-0 to Morgan, and on deck Pete Rose. And remember, Rose has a 50-point difference in batting average to the good as a right-handed batter. Big chopper foul, and the count 2-1. So DeJesus back to second. Stello, the plate umpire, as you see Pete Rose. McSherry, Wire, and Harvey on the bases. Jerry Crawford on the left field foul line, and Terry Tate on the right field foul line. 2 balls and 1 strike to Little Joe. Fastball, and he hits it down the left field line out of play. Back in the crowd, 2-2. Morgan, of course, was hurting this year. He had 2 hamstring pulls. He went on the disabled list in May. And even before this league championship series began, he had a sore back. He flew home to Oakland. He was examined. And they told him he was okay, and here he is. At one point this year, and he'd sure like to forget it, he went 0 for 35. Fisted foul. Good fastball in on the thumbs. So Fernando working on Morgan and vice versa. DeJesus at second, 1 out, 1-1 in the 5th. Jack Fimple handling Fernando. Three and 2. Morgan, of course, has more walks than anyone in National League history. So it figures he's also has the most walks in league championship series games. 3 and 2. Fastball, foul back.
I asked him about that habit he used to have, that little chicken wing thing he used to do. He's not doing it. He says, well, I don't know. I guess I'm not as relaxed as I should be. He said, I do it sometimes, and I don't do it others. But a lot of times, I mean, every other time I'd see him play, he'd always have that thing going, that left hand. Remember?
An elbow would beat his left rib cage to bits while he waited. There it is. It's not there anymore.
Not there.
Oh, one little one. 3 and 2. Screwball high. So the incredible walking man, Joe Morgan, at 5'7", picks up a walk as the Dodger bench studies him. And Pete Rose coming up. No, it's amazing that Morgan has averaged better than 100 walks a year in 17 full seasons in the major leagues. And I would guess being 5'7" has something to do with it, along with tremendous discipline. But now, here's Rose.
And also the fear of what would happen if you throw him just a lollipop strike.
Yeah, that's right, with his power. Rose estimates that he failed to start over 40 games this year. And for him, that's like having a season off. That's a strike. And in the month of September, what a crucial month as you look at DeJesus at second and Morgan at first. How crucial September was for Philadelphia. And yet Rose started only 9 of the 28 games before it was clinched. 1-1 the count. Rose in his entire career has 1 grand slam. It came back in 1964 against a pitcher by the name of Dallas Green. 1-1. Fernando laboring a little here. Fastball, and he missed outside with it. Ball 2. So in the Dodger bullpen, the long man tonight is Joe Beckwith. Fernando has walked 3. His strikeout was a wild pitch, and now Zachary has joined Beckwith. 2-1 to Rose. Screwball and a chopper to Russell. He goes back to Sachs. On to Brock. Double play. Barely, but they got it.
That was a good play on the part of Russell to come in and get that big hop. Morgan really with the chance to get Sachs. Sachs once again, a lot of guts to hang in or get rid of that ball and then get out of the way. Good play.
So the Dodgers get out of the jam, and at the end of 4½, Philadelphia won, and the Dodgers won.
You talk about wheeze kids or 40 years old. Watch Pete Rose. He knows that might be a double play. Now he knows that's a double play ground ball. Look at him dig. Watch this last step. He gives you what he's got.
That's quite a story. 42-year-old Pete Rose hits into a double play, erasing 40-year-old Morgan. Valenzuela drives one to right center. Gary Maddox juggles, drops it, falls down. Fernando is going to go for 3. The relay, he's in there. Boy, we better take another look at that one because Gary Maddox doesn't juggle and drop many.
He knew he'd hit the ball hard, and Maddox really had to make a long run. He's got the ball in his glove, but you see he gets tied up. It pops out. Down he goes, and Fernando, when he rounds second base, now watch him run. That tells him I hit the ball good, but around second base, near there is when he throws the wheel. I mean, he's about ready to head for the pitch right here. Oh, he's got to go another base, and here he comes. And he's about had it. The cork is flying, he's leaking oil, but he makes it.
He made it, and Gary Maddox, 8 consecutive Gold Gloves, will get an error on the play.
I think one of the things is that he didn't know exactly where he was. He thought he was closer to the wall than he actually was, and when he hit the warning track, he stumbled. Fernando may have pulled something. You could see when he was rounding second base that he about threw a gear because he was huffing and puffing. He was definitely leaking oil when he rounded second, I'll tell you.
Well, that's Dodger trainer Bill Bueller along with Tommy Lasorda and Joe Amalfitano. And the third base umpire, Doug Harvey, and Fernando evidently says he is okay. And again, we point out what is driving Paul Owens to distraction. First, though, let's watch Fernando.
Watch here. There he goes. He's trying to come up with that second effort, and down he goes. It's the slide up and down, and it was the right leg they were concerned about. But anyway.